of CCWD Board of Directors, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Ms. Rebecca, could you do the roll call, please?
Okay. Director Cicada?
Here.
Director Davidson?
Here.
Director Underhill?
Here.
Director Thomas?
I'm here.
And Director Radaman is absent today.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is for public comment. Any staff member want to make a public comment? No? Oh, come on. Okay, so I won't, since there's nobody here, well, I suppose if there's somebody online that might want to make a public comment. Okay, we'll dispense with the explanation of public comment then. All right, moving on. Next item is the consent agenda. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items on the consent agenda.
I'll move for acceptance of
I'll second.
items 3A through 3F. Yeah.
3A through. Do you want to modify your second, the modification or the addendum? All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of the consent calendar. You want to pull the board on that?
Director Cicada?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes. All right, and under going on to new business, we have approval of the fiscal year 2024 service area water supply and demand assessments. And we have Brad Arnold. Hi, Brad.
Hi, board members. Good afternoon. So like last year, we're presenting the upcoming fiscal year rather, water supply and demand assessments. Recall, this is a requirement of this from the state that started with the last urban water plan update that you all adopted in 2021. So every year going forward, regardless of drought, or in the case of this year, a very wet year, we still have to provide detailed reports, as you can see in the agenda packet, the attachments that suggest where are we at with our water supplies? Do they meet projected demands? And do we need to enact any of the stages or water shortage responses that are identified in our water shortage contingency plan? The short answer for you all is no. Obviously, with the wet year that we had with snowpack, 160% of accumulated precipitation for this year, we are sitting in very good position in our reservoirs, as well as most of the state is. It's just interesting to take a look at where we were about a year ago at this point on the U.S. Drought Monitor versus now, where a very small portion of the state is in what they would consider a very minor drought conditions. So from a water and hydrology perspective, we are sitting very, very well right now and should have adequate supply to provide to our 6 service areas. You'll see a lot of the tables broken down. Again, that's to provide it in the state format that they want to see submitted to them. So a lot to let them know that everything's going to be okay for the upcoming fiscal year as best we can tell with our projected demands. Something that staff puts together in there is also the projections report. We did this last year and wanted to provide another report updated this year that looks at each of the service areas, provides some background, and also provides a timestamp for future reference so that we can go back and see what were the conditions starting off on this year based on the prior year projections report. How close were we on our projected demand so that we can make appropriate adjustments going forward? And you can see in there that, you know, we understood at the time that we were in a drought. Nobody knew when it was going to end at that point, but boy, did it ever end this year with the water that we got. But it's a good reminder that we don't know what next year is going to bring, that our fiscal year starting in July and ending in June actually overlaps. Those, you know, right in the middle of it is the wet, rainy season that we typically get. So we don't know what next year is going to bring, and we always need to be preparing. And so I know a number of folks at CCWD, operations, water resources, others, as well as folks we've talked to at NCPA, are really looking at how do we store and be prepared for what might be another drought condition next year. You know, it's anyone's guess at this point. So I can answer any questions on the reports themselves or anything. Yeah, Director.
No. My concern is, have we talked, or have you talked or thought about going through real extensive heat and, you know, the evaporation of the water? Is it anything significant?
Sure, it's a fair question. Yeah, certainly as we get more sun and heat, you're going to get evaporative conditions, especially it tends to affect more of the lower elevation reservoirs like New Hogan. So we constantly monitor that, work with our partners at the Army Corps and others. But realistically, if we see anywhere between a 2-3% evaporation, that's a lot in a year, even in especially, hot and dry type year conditions. So even with that, just what we have available to us in storage, be it New Hogan, Spice, or others, relative to what our demands are, it's never been an impact to us or a fear at all.
So even though we're going to be living through 106-degree weather for an extensive period of time, not to worry.
Not to worry. Certainly, it should always be in the back of our mind as we see evaporation losses. We'd love to be able to capture and prevent that somehow, but
Right.
to the same degree, it's always been a very minor percentage of what exits the reservoir. A lot more of it goes towards our hydropower projects on the North Fork or towards other users on the Calaveras River system. Now, I will point out on here, and it's always worth noting that for 3 of our service areas, in particular, Sheep Ranch, West Point, and Wallace, they don't have these large storage reservoirs backing
Right.
them up. And so we always need to be concerned with the fact that maybe it's not going to be a hydrology issue this year, but there always could be single points of failure. I don't need to get into them publicly in the meeting here, but I think we're all aware that, we need to be cognizant of those systems that don't have the type of storage backup that the other ones do. But no, it's a fair point. We should always be aware of that, but a lot more of the outflow tends to go towards other uses.
Yeah, further in, I don't remember where exactly, but we were talking about fill stations. And so
Oh, yes.
that is what we want to make sure that we're
Yeah,
keeping on top of, because
Yeah, excellent point, Director Underhill, and certainly I don't want to step too far out of this particular agenda item to talk
Mhm.
fill stations, but we are looking at other ways to utilize our water in county as well, and fill stations would be an example of something we could do.
If it weren't for the evaporation, it would be much hotter than 105, so.
Potentially, yeah.
I just have a question about this, on this report, the attachment A and all the other attachments that show the projected demands and estimated water supplies. On the third cell, there's an odd spelling, and it's supposed to be deficit, I think, but there's a caricature. Can you look at that and see what I'm talking about? You don't have it in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me, but I'll definitely check once more over for spelling errors and issues. Admittedly,
Oh,
as you can see, a lot of those from.
come here, please. This, is that hieroglyphics for deficit or what?
Mhm.
That is supposed to be deficit. I'll go check through there. My apologies. Maybe I can blame it on having to do this 6 times over and over again, but we'll look through there once more to make sure that what we submit doesn't have any errors or issues.
But it might be electronic shorthand or something.
Can I blame it on the computer still at this point? Maybe?
Okay, any other questions on this item?
It's just for information.
We're supposed to approve
Well,
it.
sorry, technically, I
Yeah.
think they approve it by minute entry. That allows me to submit it to the state, so.
I'll move for acceptance.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the public elsewhere? Is Matt on with us today? I see.
I don't
Any
know if there's
DB
one of
or-
the 12 other participants on there.
He's not, okay. All right, so a motion and a second. Would you poll the board, please?
Director Cicada,
yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes.
Great. Thank you all.
Okay, moving on. We have item 5A. This is a public hearing, and this is discussion and action regarding the adoption of the fiscal year 2023-24 operating and capital improvement plan budget. And the secondary portion of that is discussion action regarding the adoption of the fiscal year 2023-24 personnel allocation budget. So, Jeff?
Do you have to officially say open the public hearing? Good.
We're good. Okay, we're opening it. Go ahead.
Time is.
There it is.
We don't have any stuff.
All right.
Very good. Can you please put up the PowerPoint presentation? Is it easier for me to, for me to talk to here at the?
Just fine.
Okay, thank you.
Looks good on you.
Well, it's good to actually be here in person.
Yeah.
And the item today is the adoption of the 2023-24 operating and CIP budgets, as well as the personnel allocation. Based on some of our comments, your comments we received from your board, the finance committee, and also IB Consulting after the last meeting. If you can go to the next slide, please. We've looked at concerns of including the proposed rate increase in the proposed budget, or the projected rate increase in the proposed budget. We also had conversations with IB Consulting regarding some concerns over our rate model. One of the things that, and I'm kind of diverging a little bit here, but I wanted to explain where IB Consulting came in. When we were preparing the rate study, we used the 2022-23 budget as our base. We did make some amendments to it in regards to chemical costs and CCPA costs, as well as fuel costs, because we knew they were increasing during the year. Then recently, as we were going through the budget process, we found there's some additional cost increases that should be put back into the rate model. When we did that, it took the rate model above the projected 21% revenue requirement increase in the water fund. And since we had committed to your board at the previous meeting, that would be our target. We went back and had to do some changes in the water operating fund to cut some more expenses there to keep down to that target and also meet our debt service coverage ratio targets, which we talked about at the last meeting. So there was not only comments from your board and concerns about using projected rate revenues in the budget, but also concerns from IB Consulting about our proposed budget and how it would affect the revenue requirements and debt service coverage ratio. So we actually did two things here. The first item that you see there is what would happen if we do not increase rates. There's about, if you look at when I go back to the previous discussion, we had about $2.2 million of additional water and sewer rate revenue coming in. About 1.85 of that was for new rates projected from October 16th through the end of the year. The rest of that, about 200 and I think it was 60,000, somewhere in that ballpark, was for new accounts, but also increased consumption on the water side. Since we're no longer in a drought, we generally, once we've rebounded, I've seen in the past where consumption goes up, so you tend to get a little bit more consumption revenue.
Excuse me, can you tell me what page you're on?
I am actually in the second page of the handout
Okay.
for that page right up there for the PowerPoint.
Options.
Budget options, yes. So in that, if we look at removing that 1.85 million, we get about a deficit of 1.8 million. And I'm going to switch between slides to make it a little easier. If you could go to the next slide, please.
Jeff, is this handout available to customers online so they could, okay, show me, but can you maybe have it up there? Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. This is the budget summary showing no rate increase. And as you can see down below, all I did was, after taking out that revenue increase, we show a deficit of $1.8 million. As I mentioned, the only change was in the operating revenue above. Everything else stayed the same based on what we presented to you on the 14th. Now, how do we address this 1.8
Jeff,
million?
quick, on
Yes.
these, on the first screen that you were showing us, you had these deductions, you know, the capital outlay and the et cetera. So you did these, and then the budget that we have attached, that does include a potential rate increase. Does that still include these deductions here?
The budget that was submitted as part of the budget package does not include any of these decrease.
Okay, but
Correct.
this is what we would have to do if we don't accept a budget as presented.
Exactly. And so what I wanted to do is kind of give you an idea of what the magnitude of the cuts we would have to make if we did this. And that's, I'm sorry for jumping back and forth,
It's
but
okay.
this visual shows you the budget. If we can go back to the previous slide, please.
It shows you the deduction.
Okay. If we have to make reductions of $1.8 million, we can't change salaries and benefits. So that is not an option at this particular point in time. We would need to reduce services and supplies by $660,000. We could reduce capital outlay from its budgeted amount of just under 1.4 million to 168,000 for a savings of 1.1 million. We need to leave the 168,000 in there because that's the cost of our existing leases for vehicles.
So
Not
Jeff,
new, but existing.
so give me an example of some of those capital outlays that would be kicked to the curb.
Okay.
It would,
Uh,
I can jump in there also. I mean.
Hey, Damon.
Hello. So you'd be talking about additional gasoline and diesel powered vehicles. You'd be talking about cameras for the collections crew, sewer cams, line locator for the engineering department, and rehab of sand filters, and critical facility generator replacements.
Thank you.
And that is on page 23 of your PowerPoint. Everything would be deleted except for the first line.
Okay.
Thank you, Damon. Now, there is one caveat to decreasing the capital outlay budget. We use transfer of funds from our special project fund that's property tax money that we developed years ago to fund one-time expenditures. That money comes in to help fund capital outlay. So if that capital outlay budget goes away, so does that transfer in of revenue. So we have right now, the proposed budget has $585,000 worth of transfers in coming from special project fund to fund those extra projects that Damon went over, the equipment and the projects. The only thing that we could transfer in was 168,000 for the existing leases. So we'd have to reduce another $417,000 out of the service and supply budget because of less revenue.
Wait a second. Let's go back to what you said to begin with. That was from property tax coming in.
Yes.
And why would it be gone if we didn't use it or if we didn't transfer it in?
Well,
Why
it's
can't we transfer? it?
it's not going away.
Right.
Remember years ago, we used to have a separate account within our reserves called the Special Project Fund. We would divert, it started out at 25%, but I think it's down to 15% of our general property tax monies to go into this reserve that we set aside for one-time expenses. We used to buy vehicles. We used it to buy vehicles. Now we do lease. If we had a larger piece of equipment, we would do that. The Special Project Fund says it's to be used for one-time expenses and for equipment and purchases. If we take away the capital outlay budget, there's no need to transfer that money in to subsidize capital outlay and the equipment purchases.
Okay.
So it's still in the pot. to
It's
get
still
to
in the
that
pot,
point, But we
right.
don't budget
Yeah,
to get
but-
those things, we can't use that money.
but we don't use that special project fund to cover operating deficits. It's used for other purposes. And we've tried to narrow that down just to be able to maintain those funds available.
Don't we change the
Okay.
policy?
We talked last time about the expected tax revenue, property tax revenue being about 3.8 million or something like that.
Yes,
And it was a long ago established that you would take 15% of that per year to put it in special projects.
yeah, it goes in the special project fund, yes,
Okay, each and every year, that's the policy.
yes.
Okay.
And it has been used traditionally for equipment purchases and some projects.
Do we have any fund at all that could be used to balance an operating deficit?
At this point, no. We would have to
Do
make
we
the
have
cuts.
one that just doesn't have any funds?
Well, we don't have,
So we've never had to be in this operating.
we have our Fund 108 Interest Reserve Fund that has our FERC relicensing, water rights money, has our CIP money, has our 90-day operating reserves, emergency reserve, and our rate stabilization fund, and which we're going to be using to help stabilize our debt service coverage ratio on the water side. And then we also have the special project fund and a few small other funds tied to our USDA loans that we're setting aside for depreciation.
But not 1.8 million,
No, ma'am.
nowhere near. And we cannot change the description to say that we would use it for operating expense.
Well, yeah, I think within the board, you could probably do that to change policy, but that still wouldn't relieve us of having that other $660,000 in services of supplies that we need to cut. So I'm hesitant to go back and change policy to be able to use it because it's a policy that's been on the books before I even got here. And that was in 2008.
Okay, you referred to that fund as being 108. Is that
Pardon
right?
me? Fund 108, the interest reserve fund.
Okay. I don't know why this keeps popping into my head, but we got a $4 million settlement check from PG&E years ago. And that went into 108 also, didn't it?
It's in our water rights and our FERC relicensing fund.
And that's
It's been set aside for those two items.
okay. Okay, so isn't a portion of 108 also dedicated or available for relicensing and special projects like that?
We combined, we had 3 million initially in our water rights fund, which set up years ago.
Yeah.
And then we added in the PG&E that took it up to 5.2 million. And so those two combined were set aside for that 2.2 million was our FERC relicensing money. And the 3 million is pretty much our water rights. We combined those two items.
Okay.
The 108 used to be all the North Fork money.
Mhm.
Yes.
It was the leftover proceeds from the North Fork funds that when I first got here, every director had a certain amount of money in his, in his district that they could use as they saw fit.
You don't do that still?
No, they built helipads, they loaned money to these crazy agencies up the hill. All kinds of things. But,
Was Bertha part of that?
I'd like to use my part.
anyway, no,
Uh-oh.
we combined that and then we were just taking the only thing that we used out of it was the interest from that money for the special projects. But at one point, we were being alerted that it was, we don't really have any surplus money if we got a place for all of it, but we had to actually earmark it and give it a useful purpose. And that's why we instead of having it used to be an $8 million account, and would creep up. But then that's when we put money in water rights and then more recently the FERC relicensing, stuff like that. So it's allocated. The only thing he's talking about is the interest reserve, right?
That's the special project fund.
Special project.
Yes, sir.
But that's basically that's the property tax. And what do we do with the interest for that account? Is it just compile?
It compiles it, but a lot of it does go into that special project fund. And that allows us to, again, fund one-time purchases.
Okay, Jeff, let me ask you a question. At the last meeting, you asked for something that in my mind is fulfilled by this.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to see
Yeah.
the deficit. I wanted us to be open about the fact that we're going to adopt a budget that we don't have the income for at this time.
Okay, so this, that,
Or maybe we weren't. I mean, maybe we won't, but I just think that we needed to show it, you know, and I appreciate it being on the very front page and, you know, it's all present for everyone to recognize. And then I think we also talked to staff about coming up with okay, if the board says no, you know, what are we gonna cut? You know, what are the consequences of the board not fulfilling what staff has told us is a responsible budget? And so I think this does accomplish that for me.
okay, good.
It's on page 23.
I was just disappointed that this handout, which shows that, was not included in the board packet, and I think it should have, because that's what goes out to everybody, whether they're on the meeting or not. So those who are not at the meeting, seeing this handout, and they just look at the board packet, I don't think they know that potential rate increases is included in that budget, because it doesn't say that it is. And that's what worries me. I just don't think the transparency was there. If this was the first thing in front of the budget proposal, then I would feel a little bit more comfortable, because, hey, folks, you know, and, you know, when we do budgets, we have to project to the best of our ability what the income is going to be, but that's generally on the knowns, right? You know, we're getting our tax income, our current rates. And so my feeling with putting this proposed budget, we are assuming, and everybody knows what happens when we assume, right? That we're going to get this rate this rate increase. And I don't feel comfortable with it, because, you know, the public hasn't even had a chance to respond to it. And I just think that's how I feel. I'm not real comfortable with it. If this would have been out, and I think it just what it says, no increase. I think it should be even more spelled out for anybody looking at this stuff, saying, you know, in this budget proposal, we are projecting a rate increase. Just a big, bold statement, in my opinion, should have been included with it. I know we didn't say that, but that's what I feel the
Well,
ratepayers deserve.
We have had several meetings regarding the potential of percentages of rate increases.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the number, you know, I mean, it's over the 5 years, it's around 80%, right?
In that general area, yes.
And we've had several meetings. I mean, I don't disagree that if that an explanation should have been in here. I don't disagree with that, but I also think that, you know, there's a time when the public kicks in, and I mean, I can't tell you, we've adopted multi-million-dollar budgets and had 1 or 2 people show up over the years. I'll bet you we haven't had 10 people show up to a budget meeting ever.
Stacy, did you have a comment?
Yeah, it was just brought to my attention, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, that on the like the revenue and expenditure spreadsheet, it does have a variance column, which would show what
Last year to projecting.
the variance of
Mhm.
if the rate increase wasn't.
Well, you could use it as such, but the variance is, what I understand is what we currently are working on the budget to what we're projecting, up or down, the difference, right?
Yes.
So with that being said, yes, some people can do the math and say, wow, all that's showing to them is we're spending that much more, but because the revenue already projects the rate increase, they don't know that that's in there. That, in my opinion, that doesn't show that, oh my gosh, we need to do a rate increase, in my opinion.
Well, I don't want to get down in the weeds on this, but Jeff did say that he would like to see this at the next meeting. It didn't get in the packet that was sent out last Friday, but it's here today, and that seems like that satisfied your request pretty much. So, okay.
We have the public online if
Yeah.
anybody is
Want to chime in?
concerned.
Okay, getting back to Stacy's comment about the variance column, you know, in looking over these presentations and, you know, all the fine print, I had to put my reading glasses on to see most of them. But in future presentations, could we have a more of a bold line that separates the departmental all these numbers from the adopted budget for 23, 22, 23. It's grayed out, but it doesn't really pop off the page that there's something significant to the right that people should pay attention to. I'm looking specifically at page 3
Page 3, certainly,
on the proposed,
yes,
23.
I can make that darker and
Yeah.
so you can
Yeah.
see the differentiate between the two.
You have these bold lines between every other column, but then that one's sort of weak and doesn't really draw your eye to it. So this small request.
Do we have members of the public online? I've just been curious as to how the public feels about.
This was publicly noticed in the papers as well.
I just wonder how they feel about projecting that. And of course, you know, all of our revenue and expenses are projected. But usually they're projected on a known item, like we know we're getting our tax money, you know, so. I don't know, I'm torn.
Okay, let's see here. Jeff, did you have any other comments you want to make?
I think we've covered everything on this. There is one item here and it'll show up in some of the future projections. As part of our budget reduction, we moved the Copper Cove ozone unit replacement out of capital outlay into water CIP, basically due to the dollar amount and the timing of it. It really belongs in CIP.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the last line item bullet point on this one. And I'll cover it. I also cover it later, but I just didn't want to ignore that.
And you also took out the rehabilitation of those facilities at Copper Cove.
Those are all out if we take out all the capital outlay, yes.
Yeah.
Now,
I guess I'll be working with Eric on doing that on weekends or something. Okay.
we could use your expertise.
I don't know about how expert I am. I can swing a hammer.
I would just like to make one comment, please. And
Yeah.
that's the fact that, you know, we know what we're looking at. We're seeing 623 variance of $623,692. But what that means to the ratepayer, that, you know, that's the thing that we've got to keep remembering.
Yes.
You know, don't tell me, well, no, you have to tell me what we're looking at from the big picture, but it's that ratepayer, and Kelly knows and Bob knows and everybody knows, but we sit here and say, that's what it has to be.
Certainly. And within the staff report, and this is on page 3, I do go into a little bit of detail on the staffing costs. And it's basically says there's no new positions. The only thing we did is move our $1 million employee from admin services to general management. And, oh, hi, John. But the other components of that, and I do say this here, is that we do have COLAs, step increases. I do identify that.
No, I know.
Changes in benefits. So that is, I didn't go into dollar by dollar each item, but it is there in detail in the expenditure page. So I try my best, but you're right. I think there could be a little bit more detail. And if people are interested, I could go line by line by line with each one.
Well, you don't have to do that with us, but I'm thinking, you know, of our customers. And,
Sure.
and I'm saying the same thing every time we go through a rate increase. I think deja vu all over again. This is what I said last time, but
Well, I haven't been part of one yet,
Well,
so.
just to,
welcome, Cindy.
just to take that a step further. And when I get to that point, when we get into the salaries and benefits line, I will show I can show you how much each increase was for each line item. And for more detail, if people online are interested, it's also on top of page 3 within your budget package. not the handout today, but the budget
You know,
package.
my concern isn't about the salaries because it is what it is. We've got great employees. We don't want to touch that. There's increases.
Mhm.
That's natural and good. My thoughts would be, where can we cut elsewhere? And something that comes to mind is, do we need these vehicles? Can we go a year or two without some of the vehicles? Find other ways to cut down. So and I just picked that one out. So we're looking at an increase, and I believe we have to have one, but maybe it won't be 80% over 5 years. Maybe we need to do something, and as part of it, we have all these critical projects. I know they're critical, but at some point, we obviously can't do them all. So with us approving this budget with the projected rate increases and seeing these expenditures, I know they're warranted, you guys, but at some point, I know with my budget at home, I can't make it more. So if we can't make ours more, what do we do? And I know you went through that there. I know they're all important, but if you can't do it, you can't do it. And go ahead.
I just want to say something about how we're different from a home budget or from your budget or my budget. We can change our lifestyle. We can change our needs. We can change our priorities. But we're not setting policy for the state. The state is setting policy for us, and they're telling us to go collect it from the ratepayers. That's exactly what they do. They set policy. They make laws. They restrict us. They ask us to electrify our fleet and do things that we know we flat out can't afford. And they don't send a check with it. They send us to be the tax collectors for their lifestyle that they want Californians to live. And it's frustrating. I mean, because what could we change regulation wise? Which laws should we say we're not going to comply with that law? Like the carb compliance. Yeah, the hell with that. These trucks are fine.
And thank you for that. That helps me put it a little bit more in perspective. So in this next 5-year budget, do we plan on buying electric cars? Is that in there for electric cars or just normal?
I don't think we have it in this.
And we went to that conference and we learned that if you buy a car now, it's good for 18 years before you have to do electric. So are we doing that instead?
Our focus currently is to gas and diesel. Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
So with that being said, you do want to get those now while you can, so you don't have to do the electric, which we know is not a good thing for some of the cars. I just use that as an example, but
I use that as an example look, this is, what if California next year pushes that up? And they could push it.
They can.
All we gotta do is do it. We know that they don't care about us being first responders or giving us any leeway whatsoever. They could change that tomorrow, and then all the work that we've done will have to be modified. I think staff understands that that electrifying our fleet, if we actually complied with that, we'd be talking about. Did we ever get a wild ass guess on what electrifying our fleet will cost? Is it 10 million plus the electric?
Yes, it's not really fathomable right now. We have a proposal for $60,000 to tell us how much it'll cost from a consultant though.
And we don't need that.
I'll tell you, it's too much for 10.
And then the other thing is you don't even know if these vehicles are going to work. So what about being without a vehicle when that doesn't work? I mean, there's a lot to that car. It just doesn't make sense.
And it's hard. I wish the public, it's like right now the dump fees are going on. And again, we're not adopting a rate increase here. We're adopting a budget. But I just wanted us to have some clarity with the constituents, because they will come as soon as we start talking about the rate. They will not come to a budget meeting, but rates they will show up at. And I just want to be able to tell them, hey, we can't do much more than this. We explained it. We can ad nauseum, we can go into individual details about our fuel costs, about our chemical costs, about all these things. Even if you just want to talk about the let's talk about the rate of inflation over the last 4 years. What is it? 30%? Compounded?
Mhm.
I mean, it's,
It's way
Well, I
up there.
guess.
it's, I mean, 'cause, you know, it goes up 10% one year and then another 8% the next year. That's compounded. So
Yeah.
even just that, even just inflation in the last 3 years has been astronomical.
But I'm trying to look for ways to save. Obviously, we can't control the cost of chemical and fuel. But are there some things that maybe we could put off, you know, new laptops for the board members? We don't need that kind of thing is where I'm trying to go. Something that we could control. We can't control those other regulations and I get that.
From what my conversation with Michael was, yesterday, the day before, I forget, but, the items that you've listed here, if we adopt, the ones that we will not do, if we adopt this budget today, as it is, we're gonna put those on the back burner and they will be done last in the fiscal year. In case, because if the board decides
Oh, in
that
case we don't get that.
are not gonna accept this rate increase, that those projects will not be done until another time.
Right.
So we will postpone those and, you know, and the way it works is at greater cost. But, you know, and I totally get it. We're gonna get our butts chewed out
So,
again.
so approving this today with the projected rate increase, the projects that you've kind of pulled out will be put off to the end of the year or at least until after the rate public hearing.
Sure.
That's the
and
way.
then reevaluate. Is that exactly
Yes.
what's gonna happen, Damon?
That's correct. Yep,
Okay,
absolutely.
that makes me feel better.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, there was some projects and work that Brad is doing within Water Resources and Kelly is doing that is part of that cutback as well, the deferral. And some of those are critical. If you could address it, you're much better at these than I am.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Correct. There were a number of items under professional services for water resources that were cut out in this latest revision. All the progress we want to make on Sigma and having to meet our 2040 deadlines. I know it's easy for us to look down the road and say that's 17 years away, but there's a lot we need to get done in that 17 years. Projects, water in the ground, things managed and governance here. Again, it's up to the board how we want to participate in Sigma, but the regulations themselves aren't going anywhere. We've spent a considerable amount of legal and professional services trying to protect our water rights to prepare for things like the permit extensions that are coming up for the non-consumptive rights, as well as eventual licensing that's going to happen for our consumptive rights all across the county. That's not cheap, and it's going to be a lot of time spent in Sacramento with the board themselves sitting in hearings. So a lot of things we've done that way to prepare and better, you know, manage water moving into the next decade plus that are gonna, you know, be on hold for maybe 6 months at most, depending on the rates. But if the rates don't go through, then who knows how we deal with those items.
You know, it's like you're asking us to approve almost two separate things, a rate increase and our budget. And that's kind of how I feel. So with the rate increase in here, how much is that? How much did you put at 1.8 million is in there of what we'll be using each year for the rate increase?
For the remainder of this year, what we did, how I calculated it was based on the financial model that IB Consulting used. They said in the water side, there needs to be a 21% increase in overall revenues.
And so in overall revenues, that includes our tax income and stuff. So
Everything.
So that's a total of them grouped together. So what percentage of a rate increase did you use in this budget?
I used about a 21%.
Okay, but I thought it was all collective.
Well,
So all of them to be
remember,
increased.
I need apart from this because property taxes didn't go up 21%.
Okay.
They only went up, I think, about 3 or 4%, a little bit more than that. So we didn't have great increases in some of the other areas. So the majority of our revenues come from rate revenues.
So at 21% for somebody that uses their basic allotment, how much is that for them?
That's the next step that the Habib is going to show you what the fixed cost is and what the consumptive costs are.
Well, can't we take a minute and do a little pencil calculation? I mean, we've got $820,000. Let's divide that by customers.
Well, some of that's water and some of it's sewer.
well, I know, but,
Yeah.
if we have 13,000 and 5,000, I don't know, we don't want to add the two together, so we'd only take a portion of the sewer, but I just did it on 15,000. So that's each of the 15,000 customers, it would add $121 per year.
Okay.
So that's $10 a month. $10 a month, that's 33 cents a day. You know, I'm not trying to trivialize any of this, but I'd like to point out that oftentimes you go to the gas station and you pay, $4.20 a gallon, and then you go down the street and you have to pay $4.60 a gallon, and you just suck it up. Please don't misunderstand anybody, any member of the public that's listening to me. I'm not trying to diminish the impact that it's going to have on some people. And I think that you can tell that we're agonizing about this, trying to make the right decision. But I can, in the overall scheme of things, I think that I can afford 33 cents a day.
Yeah, it doesn't sound bad like that.
Well, that's the same numbers that I keep, just, I mean,
Isn't it?
yeah, it's about,
And that's for
20
both
bucks a
water
month.
and sewer.
That's right.
So, there was a, oh, shoot, let me digress a little bit here. Okay. There's a summary statement back here someplace where it talks about how much effort that the staff went into to get to where we are, and how much they agonized about it, and how everybody put their best foot forward into this, and that's significant to me. I believe it. If I didn't, I'd tell you, but I don't think we have a whole lot of choice, but just jump into the inflationary pool here.
I do have one question, and this is for Damon. When we look at page 23, and this is what you're telling us are the vital capital outlay that you need. I mean, you analyzed all of this, and you cannot live without these.
That's correct. Yep. This will help operations continue to effectively treat water and wastewater and provide service to the customers. Yep, absolutely.
And the projected income you said is 21% increase
Over, yeah.
for what you put in this.
Yeah, around 21. Now, not for sewer, not for sewer. Sewer is 14%.
Okay.
Water is 21%. So I looked at different numbers there. And just as a footnote here, the items that you see on 23 that you pointed out, we've already have removed some items from that as well, from the original budget that we provided to you on the 14th.
Massaged it as much as you could.
Yes,
And
we
these
moved
are-
things out.
All right.
Absolutely vital. Okay, so tell me again, how much will that be per water customer per day? Or per,
I'm sorry, I
You
don't have,
said 33 cents. Give or take.
Again, we're not adopting the rate increase. I just want to.
But in essence,
Remember.
though, because it's included in here,
We can,
Right.
I know, we can take it away. We can take it away. I just want to have the opportunity to have the public, when they do show up, say, okay, which of these things do you feel that the district shouldn't do? And they're gonna say, well, none
all
of
of it.
it. Everything all the stuff in Copperopolis, you should quit doing, is what they're gonna tell. It's expensive.
yes,
and you're sitting next to Russ.
it used to be West Point. Now it's Copper.
When do I get my turn? I'm not sure.
I'm cool.
Doing it.
All right. Again, I want to emphasize that the board, each and every one of us is taking this very, very seriously and trying to do the best job that we can do, and as right along with the staff. So do we need to go line by line? I mean, I'm satisfied with what I see.
We did that at the finance.
We did
committee,
that.
So I'm
Okay.
good in not doing that. I'm ready to make a decision.
Okay, So let's see if we can get a motion for approval. Well, let's, should
You
we?
want public
You open
comment?
a public hearing?
I did, yeah.
Is this require a public hearing?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about public comment?
Well, we need to have a motion and then we can have public comment.
I'll move, the resolution 23, whatever. 42, the fiscal year 23-24 operating capital improvement program CIP budget. You want them both?
Well, we haven't
That'd
talked
be
about the
separate, yeah.
allocation. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Okay, do we have a second on that motion?
You're twisting my arm. I'll second it.
Okay. All right, I have a motion and a second. At this time, I would like to encourage any public comment on this item.
I do have a comment though,
Mhm.
because I am moving forward with this. You have your projects that are waiting to the end of the year. I'd like to have a list of those projects, so I'm gonna keep an eye on, make sure they don't get started.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I just have to do that, so when
Well,
I
they should
tell
not
the
start them
ratepayers,
till we have
you know, it's not that I don't trust you guys, I just wanna make sure that when a ratepayer says we've moved these to the end, so if the increase doesn't go through,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So can I get that? And that way we'll just. Okay, thank you.
Good.
I just, I mean, is there any last 3 years combined inflation rate? Because we're talking
Oh, it's a
about,
lot.
it's more than 21%.
It's a lot.
I mean.
Yes.
For
Wait a minute.
materials, Director Davidson, it was 68% the last 2 years increase for materials and supplies.
Yeah,
And it was also noted that if we are blessed with costs go down to where they used to be, we could say we're not gonna do a tier increase,
we
right?
can always reduce.
Okay.
Right. And we have done that.
Yeah.
In the
yeah,
past.
I said that.
Okay.
Do you have that number?
Yeah.
The CPI for last year alone was 6.9%. And over the last rate period or rate design period, there was only 1 year where the rate increase actually covered the CPI increase, and that was 3 years ago, and it was by 0.1%. And that's for water. For wastewater, it was 4.1 was our increase. And it was surpassed about 18 months ago. So it only hit 2 or 3.
Right, but we gotta remember too, they compound every year.
Yeah,
It goes up 7 1 year and 7 the next year, that's
14. That's
Right.
that's exactly right.
And
It's actually, well, it's.
Yeah, more than 14.
It's high.
yeah, and then taking a step further, because this is not included in the inflationary index, CPPA.
Yeah.
Our budget from last year to this year is it's increased over $500,000. Over the last 3 years, it's gone up over 200%. So that's not captured in any of our inflationary numbers. It's just a number that's huge. It's a big portion of our budget that we have little control over. And that number jumps out at me every time I look at the budget.
You said we have little control over it. I would suggest we have no control over it.
No.
So,
True.
Excuse me, the wastewater increase 14%?
14%
Projected.
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 That's what you use for the revenue and the.
Yes, it's a projected increase in overall revenues.
okay, Brad.
Sorry, I was just gonna add in that beyond inflation, something that can't exactly be measured with CPI, but is a point that Director Davidson had made about regulatory compliance. I can tell you that most of my professional services budget in Department 60 is just trying to keep up with different regulations, different annual water supply and demand assessments like you saw today, safer reporting monthly that Kelly and I are now doing to comply with state water board requirements, all the water use efficiency standards that we've talked about in separate board meetings. They're here. The first reports are due to the state on January 1st of next year. So there's a lot of compliance each year that just increases more and more consultant dollars. That's
So the difference in your budget from now, from your department now, from 10 years ago is probably tenfold.
and it's mostly because of regulatory compliance. Yeah.
So we need to have the public complain to the politicians in California. That was helpful, huh?
I guarantee you, they're gonna come here first.
Oh, I know. I know. But that could be reversed, weird, yeah.
All right. Any other online participants? All right. We have a motion and a second. I'd like to close the public hearing and poll the board.
What, excuse me just a minute.
Mhm.
What about for the personnel allocation?
We're.
But you're gonna open it back
we'll
up?
Come back for that, yeah.
You'll open the hearing back up?
Mhm.
Okay. It'll work.
Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Davidson.
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes. Okay, so that is, you said that that's 2023 42. All right, I'd like to turn our attention to this discussion and action regarding the adoption of fiscal year 23-24 personnel allocation budget. You'll find that information on one page at the end of the previous discussion. So, Jeff, I'd like to open the public hearing on this item. And Jeff, could you explain what's going on that?
Certainly, and I apologize for the actual size of the personnel allocation within the handout PowerPoint, but you have a much better copy within the budget.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the agenda package. This item here actually shows the positions by department, what their allocations are, from the admin services department to engineering, general management, utilities, and so forth. If you look at the right two columns, fiscal year 22-23, we had a total of 75.25 allocated positions for last year. Proposed for this year, unchanged at 75.25. As I mentioned earlier, the only change was moving the external affairs manager from admin services to general management. Everything else remains the same. So what you're doing here is you're approving the allocation, and this is what guides us for the positions that we have to be able to fill within each department.
And why do we keep doing that? We do that every time.
That's the way it's done.
Actually, this
No,
is
I mean, let's make sense out of this thing.
understood. Last year was a transition year. When Jessica was the external affairs manager, her budget was in admin services, but she ended up reporting to Michael halfway through the end of the year. So all we're doing is making this permanent because it makes more sense from a workflow, is that external affairs, who's doing a lot of this work, works directly with the general manager.
Right.
And at least I'm not adding another department for you.
Thank you.
The other thing, Director, as employees are leaving the district, retiring, the management staff is always looking at how to best organize the district. So that sometimes requires some changes within departments and positions.
Okay, but as I say, we do this every time. And so next year, you're going to do it again to us. I just know it. Mark my words.
Put that in the minutes, would you?
Okay. No promises.
It's just,
Oh, see? See?
Bertha, it's just housekeeping. We have to keep things.
There was a portion of the external affairs that was under Department 60 as well from the legacy member. That was still contained in my budget each year.
Oh,
This helps speed it up.
So it's your fault.
I won't take long, this will be another position. But on the part.
No, but it also, it's just it's our reaction to a constant changing set of guidelines. that we have to
Yeah.
comply with.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't like change, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's, again, we're not, I mean, I would love to have a list of the board action that has driven up costs in the last 10 years. I don't think there is any, or even staff. I mean, we're being bounced around by the state, and we have to make adjustments. I mean, your department is, perfect example of that,
We had one when I first joined.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if we needed them back then.
Yeah, exactly.
I can remember Fred Burnett telling me, he said, Jeff, because you can't believe how it is right now. He said, every day over the fax, I get another regulation from the state. And that was, I don't know how long ago. Fred.
That was 15, 20 years ago.
Back when we were using fax machine.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, is there a separate, in the budget line item that says regulation or anything, or is it just kind of included in just because certain things, you know, the permits and that kind of stuff? I'm just wondering how much regulation has gone up compared to last fiscal year.
I don't have a number of that.
Not
We,
one
yeah, we have
line.
permit, we can identify permit fees, we can identify.
Dam safety fees, all those things.
Yeah, so there's really no one spot to
No,
look for it.
No.
So you can look in operations, permits and licenses, but like Director Davidson said, it doesn't necessarily cover every single regulatory fee. Brad's
Yeah.
gonna have a whole separate in water resources. But for operations, that would be all the permits to operate for the water and wastewater systems. And then bear in mind also, when we amend a permit, they charge us for that as well. So they have to review the permit if we add a filter, if we make an adjustment, if we improve the system through the CIP, that does sometimes have a bearing on the permits and licenses, although generally that's captured in the cost for the project. But sometimes it carries over a little bit beyond the completion of the project.
I am looking at the operating budget, Damon, under state water right fees. So the adopted is
Yes, correct, right.
150 and we're only asking for 85. Is that because it was moved somewhere else?
So I'm looking to.
Sorry, I just had to pick up one that was less,
Yeah.
not more.
That's a great question. So what that had to do with is this last year, we filed an extension form, which includes its own fees to file. We don't need to file it again this year since
I
it's
think
been.
I asked this already.
Yeah, I think-
I didn't, so I'm good.
Yeah.
Had to be reminded.
All right. Do the board members have any other questions or comments on this?
I'll move for acceptance of our personnel allocation.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second, inviting public comment on this item. Okay, since I don't detect any, I'll close the public hearing, and could you please poll the board on the motion?
Director Cicada,
Yeah, is that on both of them or one?
we already took roll on the other.
Oh, we did. Oh, my gosh.
Yes. You were enthusiastic, yes.
I do remember that.
Okay, so Director Cicada?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Is this meeting later yet?
And it's remarkable to me how we can spend so much time approving a non-change. Well,
You know, when I started, here, there was only 65 employees.
May I add one more thing?
there was 70 allocated, 65 on.
Well, how many-
There's always been 70 since I've been here, right?
Oh,
For the-
the allocation.
The allocation actually is less than what it was pre-recession.
Still not much, though.
Okay, I don't know whether
20 years ago.
Scott Ratterman, are you on? It's 5:00.
No, it's daytime, nighttime.
It's
in the
no,
Philippines.
no, it's 5:04 tomorrow morning.
Yeah, yeah.
So Scott, where are you? I bet you'll be glad when he comes back, right? Right?
Where is he? I don't know.
Somebody said no.
He's in Manila.
Good for him.
Ah, my old hometown.
Really?
Yes.
All right.
I just
Don't let
wanted
me get
to
away from you. You're on the roll.
I'm on a roll.
go for it.
Okay, so,
Just ready to rock and roll.
all right. Do you have your general manager's report ready?
I do have a message from Michael.
Uh-oh, is it good?
It was very good. Just wanted to report out that on June 15th, we had our annual Kids Day event,
Oh,
which was great. Thanks to our Employee Relations Committee. We had over 50 kids and about 80 participants total and
Nice.
very favorable comments in
What
regards to
about
it.
that?
Kids are looking forward to it next year.
What about didn't you guys do like a mock board meeting?
We
Oh,
did.
yeah.
Yes, it was great. We actually have a little recording of it that we could forward to you if
I'd
you'd
like to see that.
it. But everyone did a great job. There was a little presentation on where your water came from Kelly Gurdensmeyer. Damon presented an item on approving chocolate milk pipelines to all schools.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
The what? What'd you say? Gonna use the slurry line for that?
That's awesome.
We also had a all employee meeting last week. Was well attended as well. And Michael just wanted to give another thank you out to all of the staff for their continued work on the budget and the rate study as we're all just chugging along there. That's it.
Gosh, if only his reports were always like that.
Yeah. Very, very nice. All right, moving on to board reports. Could we start with you, Director Cicada?
Yes, I didn't attend the IRWM because I was up at the airport. So that'll be next month sometime. Also, I do want to thank staff. I know I can be pretty hard on this budget stuff and I sort of apologize because I don't want it to be hard. But that's part of my job is to make sure that I hold everybody accountable. So thank you. I know it was a lot of work and I appreciate it. And we still have more stuff to go through. So thank you to you all. And then just a note, I'm going to be leaving for Texas July 15th. So I'll be here for the 12th. I will not be here for the meeting on the 4th or the second meeting of the month, whatever date that is, in July, the last meeting in July. So if it's one that, is rate study or something like that, and I need to be here, I can't, but I'd like to agendize it. I have to go do some emergency repair on my Texas property. So we could maybe set that up if it's something, if it's not anything I have to be there for, I'll at least call in and just not participate. And then I should be back for August meetings. And then Bertha's going to take over the finance meeting, the finance meeting in July if we have one, because I won't be here, but I can call in and listen. Okay. That's it.
All right, you mentioned the last meeting in July. It's listed in the agenda packet as being July 24th, and it's not. It's
No.
26th. Okay. All right, Director,
You're just getting all kinds of corrections, huh?
it's my job. Director Andrew?
Oh, okay. Briefly, do we regulate, what kind of regulation do we have on a fill station? Just a quick thing. Tell me.
Regulation?
Or, monitoring, not a regulation,
Oh,
monitoring of a fill station.
It's all done
So-
by card reader.
Yeah, so,
What?
well, we don't have any card read fill stations, but we do have Lancha Plana. The
Yeah,
Lancha
right.
Plana program that has metered stations where folks can come grab water. And then what happens with that is a work order is issued monthly and members of the distribution crew will grab the read and then complete the work order closing and close the work order. And then that goes that goes to customer service. So that also is similar for construction water. So if a contractor
okay.
has a hydrant meter, that's how those are closed also.
Okay, so we'll have all sorts of different parameters if we go into a water shortage situation, right? If, our water is evaporated and all of a sudden
Mhm.
they don't have enough water and they have to go to a fill station.
Yeah,
That-
and actually,
About that. I'm really about that.
Do you have a fill station in your district? All right.
Well.
All right, then I won't worry about it.
But,
Okay.
but Bertha, not making light of it, there are a number of families in the Diamond
Right.
20 subdivision that go to the Copper Cove treatment
Yeah.
plant and fill up their 350 gallon tanks two or three times a week.
Mhm.
And not because of any overall water shortage, it's just the water is very, very scarce in the Diamond 20 subdivision. Okay.
Yeah, I've not even ever been out there, so I don't even know. Okay, here is one thing that I really wanted to cover, and this is the petition to save our fire departments. And we have a great big campaign. This is now the 4th time that we are going to go after that increase in the sales tax to fund our fire departments. And last time the measure lost by 462 votes. I think that's what it was. And this time it has to go. We have just all kinds of people all over the county, and all we're doing is circulating a petition to get that measure onto the ballot next year. Okay, so that's all I'm asking for, your signature as a registered voter to get it on the ballot. Then we will decide if we want to increase our sales tax by 1% to fund more fire safety. For example, up in Ebbets Pass, we will hire on another firefighter into the Hathaway Pines so that can be completely staffed 24 hours. We will buy more equipment all over the county, and this is for all over the county. Railroad Flat, Mountain Ranch. They just need fire protection, and you all know that, and it's very, very important to us.
Well, the sales tax increase, you can have all the tourists help pay for.
Absolutely,
That's good.
absolutely. So I have a petition, and I would just love to get everybody's signature, and I'd be willing to spend the evening if I have to here getting all your signatures. And I'll get Jeff's right now.
I've already signed up.
Oh, okay. Oh, great.
I did.
Oh, all right. Okay, so please see me, call me, trip me or something so you can
Oh,
sign
do
that
that.
petition. Other than that, that's it.
Director Davidson.
Just like usual, but I did, and I signed the petition at this event, but I attended Lock and Tennis 50th anniversary, Friday night. And, it was a big success. I also recently met, new prospective owners of Lock and Tenna, and it's pretty interesting guys. I was able to sit down with them for a short period of time. Hopefully, I think they've just signed a letter of intent. Hopefully they'll, fulfill, the switch over, and they seem like they'll be, active development partners in the area, so I'm hopeful for that.
Where is this group from?
All over. I don't want to get too,
Okay,
tell you later.
okay. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make people aware of a wildfire education workshop that's taking place on July the 11th up at Murphy's at the the Native Sons Hall. I have some more of these. Rebecca was help me print. So this is for water district personnel. Portion of the presentation is an afternoon water agency discussion, and then prior to that, starting at 8:30, is the for fire first responders, and it's being co-sponsored by Utica Water and Power and the Union
UPUD.
UPUD. Yeah.
Can us, all the board members go? I'd like to go if possible, but.
Yeah.
I would think so,
Yeah.
wouldn't you?
Okay.
Yeah. Because one of the main speaker or one of the main speakers is Kevin Phillips, and he was the GM of Paradise, and he's the one that Kelly and I and anybody else know. Oh, Cindy, you were there at that
Mhm.
presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great
Do we have the
speaker.
RSVP?
Mm-mm.
Okay, very good.
No.
How's it going?
Okay, again, that's Tuesday, July the 11th, starting at 8:30. And the other thing that not really on the CCWD side of the ledger, but on the Russ Thomas side of the ledger, I had a party at our house Saturday night and turned out really great.
House looks
And-
great.
And my wife is very happy and exhausted. Trying to
And
get
he had tacos.
it ready. But okay, so that concludes. Oh, anybody want to propose any future agenda items?
I do.
Yes.
How does the board feel? I'd like to get agendized the accounting program, the
Oh.
Tyler Springfield type thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to be able to talk about, are we staying with Tyler or do we move forward with something else? So I'd like that agendized if you guys want to talk about it. I think we need to.
Okay, Jeff, go ahead.
Can I defer that to the August meeting? Because
No, I'm just.
we've got a lot of things going on right now, especially with, especially with winding up the Mueller and the AMI system. And we also are prepping for that July 12th meeting when IB Consultants will roll out the rate design. I don't know if we're going to be ready in time to provide something on the 12th.
The thing is the kind of stuff I'm looking for is I want to know what the costs have been to date. I'd like to hear from staff about how they like it. Is it, and really, I'd like to hear from the end users, just how do you feel about it? Do we continue to stay with Tyler? I don't know what the contract is on that, but those are kind of things. So I don't know how much prep you need other than give us an opportunity to talk with staff about, is this the right direction that we're going? Is it time to say, we tried and whatever? And so I don't see a lot of prep. Just maybe a couple of questions having, anyhow.
Understood. And part of the process, what we're looking at is looking at our effort to implement the Tyler system. Because there's questions of whether or not it was done adequately and put all, it may be the cause of some of our problems with Tyler, and we're still trying to figure that out. And I'm hesitant about giving you half the information.
Gotcha.
That's all I'm saying. We could be ready by the 26th.
About the first meeting of August, because
We can do
I'm not
that.
going to be here in July anyway.
I can do that.
So is that okay, board? You guys want to talk about it?
Well,
About
oh,
our
but
accounting
you'll be
stuff?
calling in, so.
No.
We'll move it to like the first August meeting.
Yes.
Because the second August meeting is public hearing, right?
No, that's that's September. But the first
Oh, okay.
August hearing will be here. Are you going to be, Kelly, you'll be in town? There we go. And
I
then,
want to hear from you. No.
but yes, we will
Okay.
be prepared for the first meeting in August.
Well, I think that's a good suggestion. I hear comments and in various locations, even at Aqua, that we probably made a mistake of doing
Right.
the meters and the accounting program changes at the same time. But I was convinced when we made the decision to leave Springbrook and go to Tyler, that Springbrook was antiquated and not user friendly or whatever. But I understand that they've got a cloud version now that people like. So I just think it's prudent for us to take a look and make sure that staying with Tyler is the right decision going forward.
Yeah,
So
and
I'm
excuse me,
looking forward to
make
that.
one last comment. On our last claim summary, we paid a nice healthy amount of money.
Well, and that's the discussion that I want to have.
Mhm.
Okay, so it doesn't work, do we want to keep putting good money after bad, especially doing a rate increase? I want to make sure we're spending the money
Mhm.
that works better. And we could say all the problems of what happened, that doesn't matter anymore. It's here we are today. What does it take to move forward, with Tyler or with something else, whatever that might be.
And that's our
Okay.
goal too, to take a fresh look at it
Yeah.
and make a decision based on the information we have at hand today. And present it to your board and move forward and get input from everybody and users, financial side, the resources involved, and Tyler versus Springbrook or anything else.
Because I know Tyler is real expensive in their contracts, you know, their maintenance agreements. And right now, we may not be spending that much from what I'm told, because we're only having the one module. When we get all those modules, what are we gonna be paying? And I still think, 200 and some odd $1,000 a year for somebody to, anyhow.
Are you sure?
We'll talk.
Are you sure we still need to agendize this? Seems like.
I know. Go if you want to. Okay,
Trying to keep everybody out of jail, that's all.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
well, I was just commenting and that's under board comments. Anyhow, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Jeff-
can't say that.
Jeff, when's the last time that we had an in-depth look at the surplus properties?
Oh, that's not an agendized
That
item.
was like a finance committee.
No.
We don't have any more surplus properties than we did the last time we didn't care about it.
No, we did it recently, a year and a half ago.
We have a 15-acre property up here on the highway that we need to get rid of.
It's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna build-
Okay, so are we doing a Brown Act violation here,
No,
Mr.
I'm-
Davidson?
I'm talking about,
Talk them down.
probably,
Agendize it.
well, agendize like a, stick your toe in the water type of see if the other board members feel the same that I do, that we ought to get more aggressive on identifying and ridding ourselves of properties that we no longer use.
How about we do that in the second meeting in August?
Okay, all right, but just,
Yeah, I mean, wait a
Some-
second, I know
some
we
point.
did it recently.
That's our engineering.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to find out what they're doing, whatever happened to the solar company and all that stuff that.
Mhm.
Cool.
We can do that.
Thank
okay.
you.
Any other comments? I think we're down to the short. Next board meeting, we clarified July 12th and the 26th of July. So I think this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Congratulations. 20 minutes. Congrats.